Hey guys, what's up? It's Carl here, back with one of my favorite episodes of the year. We have a comparison against maybe two of the most important flagships of 2020. We of course have the brand new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra. This guy just dropped around 2 weeks ago and is Samsung's new flagship against the tried and trusted iPhone 11 Pro Max. So both of these models are the cream of the crop, the max spec that you can get for any of the brands. And with max spec comes a very max price. If you're eyeing either of these devices, you probably have an extra bit of loot lying around because both are extremely expensive. We'll start off with that first. The S20 Ultra will set you back 1,400 cookies, whereas the 11 Pro Max will set you back 1,100. So maybe this is a reason for Apple to increase their prices come September, but yeah, both are expensive. And even though they are the flagships, I'm of course lucky enough to test out both, they aren't my recommendations on what to spend your money on. Just like on the iPhone a couple months ago in the 11 family, I would just recommend the standard iPhone 11. Good enough for most people. Same kind of story over on the Ultra. Just stick to the regular S20, and a lot of the changes are in fact coming with the cameras. Maybe we'll start off with that first because I think that's the thing that most people are looking forward to is the comparison. And when you glance at these first spec-wise, it's important to take that with a grain of salt because if you look at it solely for the numbers, the S20 Ultra crushes the iPhone. 108 megapixels, 100 times space zoom, 8K video, all of that is very, very impressive, but that doesn't always stack up in the real life. And here I've done a ton of comparisons. I will say that the S20 Ultra is Samsung's best camera that they've made, but it still has a couple shortcomings. I think the dynamic range over on the iPhone is way better. You can see a lot of the detail in the sky especially, that is kind of blown out over on the Samsung S20. I think though that the Ultra does better in depth of field, especially with simple photos. Just for example, my food, there's separation. That's a look that a lot of people like, but for the rest of the photos, I think that just becomes very subjective. The versatility of the camera is what the 20 Ultra has. Of course, that moniker, the 100 times space zoom, it's cool. I mean, how many times are you realistically going to zoom in up to 100 times? I barely use the 2 times over on my 11 Pro. The ultra wide, in my opinion, is the best sensor to have other than the standard telephoto. Samsung coloring is a bit washed out, but when you compare the S20 to say the Note 10, the S10 from last year, if the camera is the main reason why you're upgrading, you want to stick to Android, that alone is a reason to upgrade to the 20 series. For video, the S20 Ultra, 8K, that's super impressive. This video is only being recorded in 4K. Keep in mind though that stabilization is turned off when you're shooting in 8K, so just make sure you've got the phone on say a tripod, you're super still because you will see a ton of the handshakes. And if you're looking to post a lot of that media content onto say Instagram, Twitter, you're big on social media, now becomes more of a problem of operating system. Everything on Android gets compressed to the max. That necessarily isn't Samsung's fault. I think that's just an Android issue altogether. Stuff on social tends to look better on an iPhone, sadly. And speaking of OS, that really comes down to personal preference. If you are Team Android, One UI over top of Android 10, it's great. Samsung has just improved so much from the good old days of TouchWiz. Maybe my one request, give us stock Android, maybe give us that option. That's me just being a purist. iOS on the other hand, it's basic, it's simple, it works. You can't customize it, but it has all the benefits of AirDrop, iMessage, so it really comes down to that ecosystem choice. What are you kind of sucked into? Both have rounded edges, they feel nice to hold in your hands. Big plus to Samsung for getting rid of the dedicated Bixby button. I'm a big fan of that. But just kind of be aware, the 20 Ultra is a big device. A lot of people knock the 11 Pro Max for being big. There is a noticeable difference in size, and that's just mainly due to the display. 6.9 inches against 6.5. So there's a pretty big difference in screen real estate size. You don't really notice that too much, especially when you're watching video. You have the classic letterboxing, the black bars around the outsides. It does make it easier to say read web content, but the display on the Ultra kind of trumps what we've got over on the iPhone. Keep in mind, it's older, but the 11 Pro Max, the design of this hasn't changed since the iPhone XS. It just feels dated. The size of the bezels are almost atrocious now. The front forehead is still as large as ever. I can only hope Apple fixes that in the iPhone 12 come September time. And to the rest of the hardware inside, both of these devices are of course lightning quick, like I mentioned. We've got up to 16 gigs of RAM over on the S20 Ultra. I have heard some reports over on Twitter of models that are rocking the Exynos processor are kind of slowing down, but if you're watching this video, you live in North America, you should have the Snapdragon one, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue. A13 Bionic over on the iPhone, both crush benchmarks, both crush every single thing that you throw at them daily. They're flagships, they're the devices that you spend the most time on. And yeah, for dropping over $1,000, you'd expect them to perform flawlessly, and they both do. The thing that I've actually been most impressed with over on the Ultra is actually the battery life. 5,000 milliamps, and I have been on this thing all day, nonstop for the last 2 weeks. It is easily lasting me 2 days use. Keep in mind though that my iPhone is now around 5-6 months old. I sadly need to rock the 11 Pro Max battery case. I am on my phone 5 to 6 hours a day, so my iPhone doesn't last me until the end anymore. That's just been battery longevity, but the Ultra has surprised me, and I've loved that. Probably my low-key favorite feature of this. A few last little irks over on the Samsung. For whatever reason, the ultrasonic fingerprint sensor isn't as reliable. It's kind of hit or miss sometimes. It's a hair bit slow. Face ID just works better for me over on my iPhone, to the point where I've disabled all security unlocking features on my Samsung device. And yeah, I think I've pretty much covered my normal day-to-day testing between both of the devices. Of course, we have no headphone jack. You can still put a micro SD card in the Ultra, which is a bonus. So I really think now we're coming down to those differences on OS. Which one are you kind of leaning towards? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I'll of course have a poll for you guys to pick. These are some of the most expensive devices that you can currently buy in the smartphone game. Like I said, if you're looking for cheaper, don't hesitate to look at their more basic lineup. Let me know your guys' thoughts down below in the comments. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this comparison, and I hope to catch you in one of my next episodes or vlogs. Peace.